The girl who moved into the dorm before me had notches on the underside of a lofted bed. I used to laugh and trace them with my fingertips. She had tally marks up to names of 20 or so different guys. Some had asterisks, X's, funny quips which were noticeably foreign social dialect, inside jokes. I wondered how many men actually made her orgasm. I wondered how many men actually made her happy. I wondered how many she had sex with just to feel something or to not feel so alone. I wondered how many men she thought she was making love to and how many men she had to convince herself not to make love to. For a month, I didn't get out of bed. The time on a microwave ticker pushed into a green 11 as my first class was just about to start, and I would miss it for the third time this week. She was asleep next to me. I kissed the top of her head. Kissing her cheek would wake her up, but unlike a natural habit of mine, which was to leave when my body sprung up first thing in the morning, I stayed rather uncomfortably, both limbs on the side of the bed, pushing my chin into my knees, while I stared at her lips curl in a beautiful dream sleep, just so I could drink in the warmth of her body a little bit longer. This girl was not going to be mine. Every morning I had to separate this, instruct myself like telling your eyes to open to before your mind can convince them. Like taking in your first breath as a baby when you don't know how. Remember, she does not love you. But you never want to make yourself believe that with no one in your bed, the fear of night is often hard enough to get through. I'm taught the difference between friendship and fuck buddy, that two people can share a bed, feel underneath each other's skin in places they cannot reach on their own bodies, find sanctuary in their arched backbone, their fingers, their thighs, their entire being, like church. And while you do not go to service often, you can still appreciate the architecture. Folks have gasped for passion and you have never heard themselves dip your fingers in their holy water. And the next day be forced to recognize each other only as strangers. Look away at someone who just a few nights before feasted on the very ways that your eyes hungered for them. That your appetite lingers like a dull ache, but you cannot satisfy it. And when you misplace something, there is no way in hell you are going back for it. Consider it lost, like your beating heart's frequency to the drumbeat of hers. Nobody cares. On to the next one. Sometimes you learn to twist your value with people. These people don't need to be consumed. Video game caricature of Kirby swallowing up his enemy's whole, cleaning the plate, leaving no bone, including your own. My friends, they used to call me Seaberg swerve. It was a term that I joked at and still do for its meaning. I would often disappear at the sight of an invite, or sometimes like an ethereal ghost-like being just randomly pop out. I'm an introvert, so a lot of this was escaping to sit in bed, eating popcorn, watching old reruns of Rocket Power. People would pull up one hand and rotate it in a circular car motion similar to a car wheel. Ah man, Seaberg swerves. But I would not go home that night. Now was not the place for home. You learn to find comfort in fragments, incomplete stops in time. I was fast becoming obsessed with the feeling of being in love more than actually being in it. You learn to love in pieces. You learn to love in pillow talk. You learn to love drugged up. You learn to love drunk. And eventually you learn not to love at all. People I did not know started to call me Seaberg for it. They told my best friend that I purposely left the country to get away from the only girl I had ever dated. I had piggybacked an air carrier across ocean to see my sick mother, and they did not know I was holding a bottle of wine for someone who would not stay in the morning. Well, it makes sense. Taylor only likes sex. It's funny, really. You convince people enough times and they start to believe you. It's funny, really, you convince yourself enough times and you start to believe them. And I'm not going to say that I misunderstood. I'm going to say this game is misunderstanding. Why the toys falling backwards, and every time I rewound the dial, people saw a new face sketched over old artwork. You learn to hide your heartbreak. You learn to cover up. And I wonder if one day anyone will really notice that some of us were just players in a game that we did not wish to be played.